Yes, good morning. It's 29th of January 2016, 9:59 a.m. here in the Pacific Northwest of North America, Olympia, Washington to be specific. This is a brief, I'll try and keep it brief, update on activities here at Half Past Human and a quick layout of some of the events that are going to be happening in 2016 and some of the new timing clues that we've been given via our data process here. We're not going to have a February report issued. It's been usually my intent anyway to get a report out near the beginning of the month, so within the first 5 or 6 days of every month. The process to produce that report usually begins as soon as the previous report ends, because we have to dump the database and clear it out and get everything ready and then start the processing over. And then the active part of the processing that I really get into takes about the last 18 days leading up to the production of the report, leading up to the release of the report. This particular set of circumstances we're facing now has to do with my mother-in-law's health, my wife's health, Igor's wife's health, and the general state of disrepair and too little personal time around here. For instance, just yesterday I had a line burst behind the hot water tank, which is in a sort of a front closet in this little cabin we live in, and was boxed in by all of the material from the pantry. So I had to spend 4 hours removing things just to get at the problem that ultimately led to, a 10-minute solder job, a little bit of pipe cutting and, that kind of thing. But it's just the sheer mass of everything that's here that is impeding progress. And I need more time on the tuning of the lexicon, because we've had a lot of language changes. As the language changes and new expressions, new emotions are attached to words, I play catch up basically, which is what I'm trying to do continuously with the lexicon tuning. And all you bastards are out there changing your emotions all the time around these words and giving me a lot of work. So it's just too rough to try and do a report and then run through February real quick and try and get one out for March. And March and April is a real critical time. And then I was asked by Igor to take a slightly different approach on the interpretation this time and deliver because of his situation, he's working 2 other jobs besides working for me, and then he has another occasional part-time freelance kind of thing that he does as well. And so he'd asked me for to prepare a thing for sort of business guidance, if you will. And so I've decided to take a different tact in the actual delivery of the information. We're going to go through and do the regular interpretation, then it's going to be sliced and diced and annotated in a slightly different way to act as a sort of a residence guide to the systemic crash that we're all going to be living through over these next few years. And we'll grow this approach over time. It's going to be very valuable, I think, over this year, next year, and 2018. And maybe we'll do it the first of every year. I don't know. It might need to be updated in the middle of the year. We'll see when it comes out. But it's going to take a little bit more time to prepare. So I'll be working. I've already started on it. I'll work all through February. We'll get the report out probably, let's say, mid to late February. It's going to be aimed at all the March and April data and beyond into the future here. Because there's not going to be a February report, I thought to take a few minutes to explain why, for one, because everybody gets on my case, and I just don't have time to deal with the emails on that. And then also to provide a bit of forward-looking information in a broad sense, so that you can get sort of a sketchy idea of maybe what you need to do to react to the circumstances and events that are surrounding us all now and are going to be bubbling to the surface as we go forward. I'm trying to navigate myself in my chair around a bunch of dogs on the floor. Anyway, so 2015 was really the year of the flying shitstorm. We had stuff going everywhere. 2016 is shaping up to be quite the odd year, the year of manifestation, I think, really. This one year I think we'll name when we're all done, when we've seen how it totally has come out. It's that odd. The data sets are filling very rapidly. The processing is relatively easy to get more data, and we're getting a pretty large spread of the intensity and the duration and some of the other values. So that's why I have to stop and tune the lexicon, is that there's the emotions that we're all trying to express are creeping out, and they're sort of distorting the language a bit, so I have to adjust ranges to try and get a forecast, and it's a lot of work at that level. And it needs to be done concurrently with the production of this particular report. Now, Igor asked about this because of his business concerns and the fact that he works one full-time job, more or less full-time, for a particular company, and is very concerned about their future based on what they do and how they're situated. I didn't have a whole lot of good news for him in that regard in the early bits and pieces that we're seeing here. But to get right to it, there's a couple of things that are going to be quite impacting for most people in the Northern Hemisphere. We've got to be somewhat hemispheric specific in this regard, because a lot of the problems we're going to be seeing are going to be this weird interrelated food and food and currency crises. And so we're going to be having a food crisis in the Northern Hemisphere in spring and summer that is going to marginally affect some of the food prices and so forth in the Southern Hemisphere in their winter. And then it'll come back as an echo to the Northern Hemisphere in the winter of 2016 and 2017 as non-seasonal food prices are just astronomically high, just beyond understanding. So, if you can make a jam out of a semi-tropical fruit that you happen to like and preserve it for this coming winter when it's available this spring, that kind of thing, you'd better do it because you won't necessarily have the opportunity, nor will you be able to afford the material, that same fruit in its non-seasonal where you're at kind of situation. I'm preparing these wujos basically for all the people that are sort of like myself, working guys. You work for government or whoever, you do programming, you're an IT fellow. I just have that particular focus on things. So if I express particular concerns that don't seem focused to you, that will explain why. I mean, if you live inner city and I don't happen to address some of your concerns and I go on about the apple crops, I live near apple country, so you get an idea as to why. But in any event, so we're going to have things like medicine rationing. Basically, what's going to happen is this. We're going to have a February's derivatives crisis. Sometime in February, we're going to get derivatives that are going to go a little bit wonky. They look like they're going to be coming out of Asia. There's some, I don't know what kind of weird-ass derivative it is. It's immaterial. It's going to go bust. These appear to be 2- and 3-party, or excuse me, 3- and 4-party derivatives. So there's some kind of weird derivative chain sort of thing going on. And it's going to start going bust. Now, the early ones in February are going to show up as no big deal, really, localized impact, sort of, but they're going to lead to real problems throughout the whole year. So once the process has already started, whatever it is that causes these derivatives to go belly up has already occurred, and so this is, according to the way the data is being read here, it's going to be basically inevitable from this point on out. So I don't mind talking about these in this broad sense. I don't have a lot of the details just yet. We'll see a lot of these emerge in February, so some of this will be out by the time our crash map is out. That's what we're calling our March report, is the crash map. It'll give you a guide for the rest of the year. When the derivatives go, they're going to cause a situation that's going to ripple through into March and April. That's going to really affect fiat currencies, especially the dollar. There's going to be this weird wobble. The data calls it in the dollar. And there's a lot of words about oscillation and how it's going to rock back and forth. So probably it's going to be very choppy in its value. relative to other fiat currencies. None of that particularly matters because all fiat currencies are in a race downhill back to their use as souvenir bits of paper. You know, when I was a kid, my great-grandfather in Missouri, who at the first time I met him, he was in his late 80s. He had on his wall Confederate currency. That was like a, you know, just a weird little thing he had. He had a couple of bits of Confederate currency, you know, that had been in the family for who the hell knows how long, or where it came from. He was uncertain. But it was just interesting stuff to see, right? And so that looks like what all of the fiat currencies are headed towards. There's a lot of references within our data sets as to how valuable gold, silver, and Bitcoin are going to be. There's going to be many, many, many different new forms of sayings about gold, silver, and Bitcoin emerging in the language. Now you're going to start seeing how the words gold and silver, and to a certain extent BTC or Bitcoin, keep popping up as references and metaphors for other things. You know, being golden, we're golden. You know, every cloud has a silver lining, that sort of thing. We're going to just get tons and tons and tons of new forms of these over these next 10 to 12 years. You'll really start, if you pay attention, according to the data, you'll really start to notice it this year. Some of the things we're seeing is gold associated with lifetime savings, silver being associated with daily needs, and Bitcoin being associated with cross-border and international settlements. But also millibits are starting to come in as their own, and decibits. So we're starting to see new words and new emotions around those words, indicating that they're going to start becoming more and more of a in daily use, and then more aphoristic within the language, in the sense that they'll become a part of metaphors for other items. You know, so it'll be, oh yeah, his word's as good as a BTC, or, you know, as good as a Bitcoin, that kind of a thing. So we'll see these new standards being put into our social contract that are a reference back to gold and silver. And in this new environment, we're going to have Bitcoin as well. Now, Bitcoin, its derivatives and, you know, or its offshoots in terms of the alternative currencies and the new technology around the blockchain, apparently are just part of what we're going to end up calling new money. Ever since I started doing this work, I've had things like the new electrics, meaning an entirely new industry based on new forms of electric motors, et cetera, show up. And so we're just going to label this area, and I've applied the appellation new in a quoted sense to a number of things, to say that we've got basically a new paradigm relative to that particular subject. We're going to have that occur with money in this year. So you'll start seeing a lot more words about new forms of money showing up, and people doing new things with new kinds of money. That's really going to be part of this a political or a response at a ground level, a groundswell, you know, ground up kind of level, to what's going to be happening at the top down, that will emerge probably in mid-April or so, right? The data is showing that we're going to have this derivative hiccup, whatever. It's going to impact insurance companies, banks, and so on. It's going to be primarily energy related to start with, and then it goes all over the place. It's just sort of like when you hit a safety glass with a hammer in it, how it crazes and cracks into all these little bazillion pieces. That's really what the data is trying to describe. And that's going to happen over March. And then into April, we start getting a government response. It's going to build. It's going to be global. It's governments. All different kinds of governments are going to respond, because this is a global phenomena, this cracking of the financial system. That really gets moving in May and June. That's the first hint we have of emergency meetings being called globally, is May and June. And then we have this, the first felt hyperinflation in the USA population showing up as of July. And we're going to sort of end our projection here, because I haven't done too much work beyond July at this point. But in July, we get this period where it really looks like there's quantitative easing every other day being released, to the point where, you know, if you buy a candy bar one day and hold it for 2 days, you can sell it for a, quote, profit, you know, in dollar terms 2 days later. just because of the general daily appreciation of the value of real goods as the currencies fall. Now, the wobble that starts this whole thing off is going to be provoked, according to the data, by some other event. I have some hints of that, but not enough to really get into it. That wobble is going to show up. It's going to hit insurance companies pretty hard. It's going to hit parts of healthcare, especially in the USA, really hard. So that's something I wanted to bring up. Not only are we going to have a fall, winter 2016 hyperinflation food crises, so prepare now, guys. It takes a long time to grow enough food to live on and to put food away. So that's what I'm going to be doing this spring and summer, is busting my butt to get stuff put away, and prepare as much as I can. But also, we're going to have to worry about medical rationing, or rationing of medical access and medical, specifically drugs or chemicals in the allopathic medicine. Okay, so if you remember our previous reports, I've been discussing how there's going to be this rise, this blossoming, and I use that term quite specifically. And it's going to be really more like an explosion. It's going to be just a huge burst of alternative. Primarily herbal medicines that are going to be grown and cultivated in the U.S. and ultimately exported around the whole planet. Now, not this year though, but I mean, you would not believe the level of intensity within the data showing that the USA is going to be this I guess the pinnacle, the ultimate, in terms of pretty soon you'll be able to get the finest, and by pretty soon I'm saying 2020s, you'll be able to buy some of the finest organic herbal medicinal compounds anywhere, and it'll be a direct response of the creativity of the populace to the sudden crashing of the allopathic mainstream big pharma industry. So there's a whole, if you're dependent on these drugs, and the more esoteric the drug is, the more you should really take this to heart. I hate to have to say things like this. I mean, it really truly bugs me, because I'm not giving medical advice. I'm merely talking about this from a financial perspective and then projecting how it could impact certain people that I know. And that projection is that the more esoteric or chemically complex the material they're dependent on, the more that they should really look as to what that condition is and how it was treated years and years and years in the past with herbal stuff, just in case that they get into a situation where their particular dependency is going to be part of the rationing and crises that's going to hit the flow of these kind of materials around the planet. And bear in mind, you will see that. When you hear people talk about the Baltic Dry Index, something which is about it's actually the cost of moving freight back and forth, and gives you a representation of the amount of fill of these particular kinds of ships. Bear in mind, the Baltic Dry Index is a really good indicator for things like drugs, because it's not involved with shipping containers back and forth. That's like the end product. That's somebody's made something out of some amount of raw materials, and they shove it in a container to protect it and ship it overseas. The Baltic Dry Index are these big boats that have giant holds, and they pump in all this dry stuff, or sometimes liquid. Sometimes they put it in what are known as IBCs, or international bulk carriers, or giant bags. But basically, it's raw materials. It's the dry goods, the powders from which everything else is made, or the stuff from which they make powders from which other stuff is made. And so as the Baltic Dry Index falls, that's going to affect anything and everything that has to be compounded from all those products. Because that's been falling for 2 years, you're going to start to really see it here in the fiat currency wobble, as the ability to ship in and make these products really starts to get impacted, and the prices on everything start skyrocketing for the finished goods. So just be aware of that. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger or anything. I'm just saying, if you are dependent on this kind of stuff, be advised. Figure out what you might have to do if the supply got interrupted. Forethought is, forewarned is forearmed. And so at least you've got some idea of, how to prepare. Or at least that, hey, this is really critical and I can't substitute, so I better make sure I've got somewhere access to it. Just that sort of thing. It's going to be a real rough year. as I say, we'll just stop with basically with those. The one last thing I wanted to mention was that as a result of the March and April reaction to the emergence of the derivatives problems and the wobble in the dollar and the fracturing, and the basically the beginning of the bleed out of the Federal Reserve and its system, you're going to see the fracturing emerge really sharply in the American political process. So something to be advised there is that it is possible to step outside of that, not get caught up in the emotional reactions to all of this. In my way of thinking, I'm sort of offering a bit of advice here in the saying that there is a calm way to approach this. All around you, people are going to be going absolutely, totally batshit crazy because of the pressures on them of the economic system decaying, the weather system apparently decaying, and the extra energies coming in from space. So most people will be unaware of these pressures. They'll just react to them, and they may focus on things like politics and may get a little bit batshit crazy. Now, so in my way of thinking, it's possible to simply divorce yourself, detach from the emotional reaction to which stooge is being put up for head stooge of the corporate stoogedom, and to simply stay back and say, okay, in the middle of this melee, which is a giant fight, an Indonesian word for a big fight, you need to take the calm, centered Zen approach and just watch out for those things that are right next to you and how they're going to impact you, and navigate your way through towards the calmer period on the other side, because this too shall pass. It may take a few years, and it may end up in some really nasty situations. And that's my point. You don't really want to involve yourself in those things or place yourself in a position where you become involved in them. Unless, of course, you happen to really like fighting and you're going to go for it, in which case, hey, more power to you. It's going to be a hell of a time for you. But for anybody who wants a calm approach to this, it is possible, but you're going to find yourself bombarded with the in extremis language coming from all of these viewpoints. It doesn't matter what they are, they will be at their most vocal, their most extreme, everything will be at its most dire. And when you hear this language, you can go, and it's gone. Just taking a big breath, release out with a cleansing breath through the open mouth, and calm is restored to you, and you can say, okay, that's fine, and let it flow around you. It's going to be one of those kinds of years. For all of us corks floating around in the ocean, that's probably the best approach. It's just kind of push the other corks away, let them go in their currents, and wish them the best. And stay bobbing where you want to bob, because things will calm down a bit as this passes. At least up through July, it's going to be beyond interesting. It's going to be riveting in terms of the amount of the events that come on out. From July on, we're going to be dealing with hyperinflation that will lead to the food crises and other crises that will hit us this fall, and the political crises that will hit this fall that results from the political fracturing of the spring. And that's pretty much my little wrap-up. Sorry it took so long. Long-winded bastard. Best of luck to all of us. I will have that report out sometime mid to late February. That'll be a little bit more detailed. We're working against some, as I say, some really extreme situations for us as well, and trying to react to the general destruction of the planet around us. Oh, one last thing. The system is really screwed up. Well, no, I won't go into that. The system's really screwed up. It basically deserves to die. At some point, I need to devote 20 minutes and give a rant on it, but I'm not going to take anybody else's time up on that at this point. Good luck to us all. Remember, bob in place. let the currents go by. This is not a time to go with the flow. Seriously, guys. This is a time to know where your position is and let the flow go. It's not necessarily in your best interest to go with it. Good luck to us all, and as I say, report out later on, and thanks to Joe Tampa for doing all the videos and all the huge amount of work he does on my behalf with the WebBot reports. I can do it or document it, not both, and doing it is is enough of a bitch. I refuse to document it. So I'm glad that he volunteered. He's a great guy. Can't wait to see see what else he produces. He's a funny fellow too. All right, so thanks guys. More later.